Hi guys, welcome back to History with Heath, and today, this is my second video today, but anyway, in this video, we can be looking back at Yungdrung Bon, Bon specifically. I understand that it has been a long time since I've been talking about Bon. This is my third video on Bon, and I'd just like to go over the actual proper sex of Bon. Well, you say sex, but it's a bit more complicated than that, but I'd just like to go over it a bit more properly. So, Bon, there are two kinds of Bon. Yungdrung Bon and just Bon. Okay, and the important thing to know is that Yungdrung Bon is different from just Bon. Because the word Yungdrung Bon is similar to how people call Buddhism, Buddha, Dharma, and that's because the word Bon is like the word Dharma, and that Hindus call their faith Hindu Dharma, Sikhs call their faith Sikh Dharma, and Jains call their faith Jain Dharma, and that Yungdrung Bon is just the Yungdrung Bon. But as you can see here, we've got, of course, just Bon itself, and we've got prehistoric Bon and mixed Bon, and Yungdrung Bon. So the main lineage of Bon, of course, is Yungdrung Bon, and all of these red ones are forms of just Bon, forms of Bon that are practiced alongside Buddhism. So, of course, like myself, there are many Buddhist people who hold Buddhism as their main faith, but still practice Bon. While, of course, there's many Bonpos who are just Bonpos. And there's Bonsar, which isn't practiced alongside Buddhism, because it is sort of the reversal of what I just said, in that it's Bonpos who absorb elements of Buddhism, but they keep Bon as their main tradition. And it's popular around eastern Tibet, and it's centered around figures like Drenpanamka. So prehistoric Bon is sort of like how Hinduism is to Buddhism, how it's more spread out, less sort of confined. It's just a mixture of practices, but they're mainly centered around divination, spiritual rites, and worship and animism. So similar to shamanism in a way. Then we've got mixed Bon, and mixed Bon is sort of a combination of basically Yungdrung Bon, prehistoric Bon, and Bonsar. Like Bonsar has influence, but not as much, so I didn't add it on here. And also the reason why I put this dotted line here is because Bonsar, although it is considered to be a form of Yungdrung Bon, it's still considered to be, in a way, kind of a separate religion, and that they change a lot of practices. That's why I just put them in the dotted line. And then these other dotted lines just show that they have influence, but they're not like, it didn't break away from these two. Anyway, so we've got mixed Bon, and we've got Lepcha Bon. And Lepcha Bon is practiced by the Lepcha people, and even if it's not called Lepcha Bon, I call it that because it just makes more sense. And of course, it comes from the Bon tradition. The Yungdrung. Well, the thing about mixed Bon is I say that, but it's just a mixture of all of them, including other things like Hinduism, Taoism, and it's just a mixture of many things and just rites. And even though it is, of course, very diverse, it still has major practices which are written down, like different forms. There's Lepcha Bon, which is practiced by the Lepcha people, and this is actually very unique because it actually was influenced by Christianity. And in many households, the Lepcha people practice, of course, Tibetan Buddhism in the Nyingma lineage, but then they also practice Lepcha Bon. And, of course, in this Lepcha Bon, they absorbed elements of Christianity. So you may see a picture of the Buddha and Christ on the wall of the Lepcha house. And there's Lu Bon, well, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, which is kind of a sect of Bon. Because it's under this umbrella along with Sipe Bon as a tradition of Bon. Because I think what Lu Bon is during the rise of no, that's not right, basically. So back in the day, you had, before the rise of Yungdrung Bon, you had the Bon pose and the Shen. Yeah, and the Shen. and you may know the word Shen from the Shen calendar, and the Shenpas, they sort of competed with the Bonpos. When I say Bonpos in this context, this is before the Yungdrung Bon, so this is more as like, not like shamans, but in a similar role. And the Shens and the Bonpos, even though they did coexist, they were almost competing for the practices. And Lu Bon is based on these practices of prehistoric Bon, but specifically the ones from the Shen. And you may know Lu as sort of the Tibetan healing tradition, but in this context, the Lu means the Shen traditions from the Shenpas of the prehistoric Bon. But of course, it got influenced by Yungdrung Bon, because when Yungdrung Bon was founded, of course, these Bonpo priests became absorbed into Yungdrung Bon, but Shen didn't. Well, some Shenpas did become the Bonpos, but the actual Shenpas themselves, who didn't become Bonpos, they just kind of did their own thing. And the same can be said for Sipe Bon, which is more influenced by Yungdrung Bon, but it still comes from the same sort of Shen lineage. And then we've got Bo Murgul here. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't know what this O thing here means, but from what I know, sorry about that thing. I'm not gonna remove that from the video because I can't. But this Bo Murgul thing is the practices of the Buryats, specifically the Buryats who live by Lake Baikal, so the Baikalese, and it's of course a mixture of mainly prehistoric Bon, but of course definitely the Yungdrung Bon input, the local input, and the Tengriism input. And of course Buryatia is, well, of course, the most northerly region of Buddhism, and they practice the mainly Gelug, I believe, the Gelugka lineage in the Gelugka school is the most practiced school of Buddhism in Buryatia, but of course they practice it with their Bon Murgul. Then there's this civil Himalayan religion, which comes from the Navel of the Demoness, which is a book that talks about a village in northern Nepal, near the borderlands with Tibet, and I think it's in Mustang or Dolpo, but it's from a village called Ter, and they have their own unique practices, and it talks about their it's called the civil Himalayan religion, but of course it varies, but it's mainly described as basically, of course, the prehistoric Bon, of course, Yungdrung Bon influence, and then lots of Hindu input, and then lots of local input. Like when I say lots of local input, these people still practice blood sacrifice despite having Yungdrung Bon influence, okay? So they still do it, and this was sort of a book contextualizing around that. And then we've got the Gurung Bon, which is practiced by the Gurung people. And even though they're mainly Buddhists, the ones who do practice the indigenous Gurung religion, the Gurung Bon, which comes from Yungdrung Bon, but also of course has the prehistoric Bon practices. They don't really practice, but they don't practice Buddhism alongside